Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany, and thank you for tuning in to another podcast episode today. If you have not entered my birthday giveaway, please do so. It is expiring on Friday, September 8th, which is in a couple of days, and I really suggest entering if you haven't done it yet. Essentially, the way that you enter is you put your name and your email in, and then there's a bunch of different ways you can add entries. So whether it's following the brands involved on Instagram or TikTok or sharing it with different people, and then you get 10 extra entries that way. There's a bunch of different ways to kind of boost how many times your name is thrown in the hat. And I really encourage you to do that. If you are interested in what the prizes are, there are 2 different prize boxes. The first box is filled with a bunch of goodies worth over $2,200, and same with the second box. When you enter the giveaway, you are automatically in the running for either. So there will be 2 prize winners, which I will draw on Saturday. The winners will be notified by email, and all of the different products are health and wellness and biohacking related and are great. Like honestly, these are all brands and products that I use myself. I would never add in anything that I personally do not own or do not recommend. So these are tried and trusted, whatever. And yeah, they're just supplements and tech and skincare and at-home tests and different things that I really love. So I encourage you to take a look. I encourage you to enter, and also stay tuned for my holiday giveaway coming in December, which I cannot believe I'm even speaking those words. I did my first big 12 days of biohacking gifts last year over Christmas, and it was so much work, but it was so much fun, and I had the best time. I honestly had the best time, and I'm going to be doing that again this year. So if you have, for all the listeners, if you have a biohacking or wellness brand that you're like, hey, this totally aligns with your women's health initiatives and goals and biohacking space, I want you to incorporate them in your holiday giveaway. Please let me know, because I will be curating that basically starting next week. Like it takes a long time to put these together. Like it really does. And that will be for another podcast episode when I talk about what it's like to be a content creator. But if you have a brand that you recommend, please do so. And I actually just had somebody message me on Instagram today who said, hey, I have this other brand that I work with. I want them to be in your next giveaway. What do I need to do? And that's great. That's exactly what I'm looking for, is like, I want to hear from my audience who you think is aligned and who you want to win. Like, what type of products do you want to win? So please let me know. And yeah, look out for that. I don't know how I'm going to do it this year. I've been really thinking about it, because last year, the way I did it was there were 12 days, and each day there was a different giveaway. And so you would win the products from that single brand. But I think it's more fun to win a big box of goodies like this time, right? So you win from 7 different companies in one box. And I think that's way more exciting for people. It's way more interesting to try new products. And so I'm kind of thinking about, how do I do it like that again? So I'd also love to have themed boxes too. I'm like really getting into the weeds here, but like, for example, I would love to have a women's biohacking prize box where all of the products in it are specifically designed for women's health and not necessarily just for anybody. And then I'd love to have like a longevity box that has all sorts of things that are focused on aging and how do we manage aging better and longevity. And so I'm kind of playing around with it. We'll see what comes out. I'm sure it'll work out. It always does. So stay tuned for that. That will be coming in December. It is now September, which is just crazy. So I'm kind of excited about it though, because Christmas is such a lovely time. The holidays are such a good time. So it feels good to be able to give stuff away. And just like this giveaway, it's been really wonderful to give stuff away for my birthday. And my birthday is next week. I am turning 30, which is a blessing and I'm really excited about it. And I actually booked a yoga ceremony and sound bath for the night before my birthday. And I've never done a sound bath. And so I definitely want to share how that goes after. I just felt called to it and felt like I think I just need to create space to be able to close this chapter of my life of my 20s. And I really do like doing yoga when it's slower and easier and more embodied versus like very fast and like hard yoga. And so I think it's going to be profound and I'm very interested in it. And I've been on this journey of mindfulness in the last couple of weeks and working on my mental health. And this is probably the first time where I've ever really taken the time to hack my mental health. And it's been hard. It's been really hard. This is going to be a full episode in itself about the practical things that I've been doing for my mental health and mindfulness. And previously, when I heard people talk about this on podcasts or social media, it's a lot of like meditate and get enough sleep type of idea. But I really needed practices that were more than that. And so I'm exploring things like orienting myself and tapping and different types of like body massages you can give yourself to calm down the nervous system. And I'm really just exploring this idea of regulating the nervous system through different things that I can personally do and becoming mindful of what it looks like when my nervous system is dysregulated, which happens all the time. So I'm really, really working on this. I would love to be in a place where chronic stress and chronic inflammation is not something that I'm dealing with. And I'd love to be in a place where I'm more at peace on a day-to-day basis than I am right now. And that I have been in the last few years, few months. I don't know. I don't know how far back it goes. Probably a long time, actually. So it's a journey and it's something that is really important. So that will be a full episode, especially after I have a bit more experience with some of these healing techniques that I'm doing. And yeah, I will of course share that with you because I think it's valuable for a lot of listeners. Today's episode is all about Neurohacker Collective. And we kind of on this same topic, a little different, is we talk a lot about brain health. And there is a distinction between mental health and brain health. And brain health has a lot to do with cognition, focus, memory, your ability to not be distracted, and basically how can we get the brain to function optimally. And so we dive into that in this episode today. And we also talk about digestion and some of their products that they have that are really supportive for the gut. And I've talked about the gut quite a bit, but we talk about gut health and how integral it is to our overall health, whether it's the brain or hormones and how it's kind of connected to everything. And we also talk about aging and longevity. And this is very interesting because we talk about senescent cells, which is something I've been diving into lately, and the accumulation of senescent cells over time. And what can we do about that? How can we reduce the amount of senescent cells that are occurring in our body? How can we support aging in a healthy way? And so we kind of dive into that today. So enjoy this podcast episode. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. I see all of them and it means a lot to me when you do that. And I will catch you tomorrow for another episode. Welcome to Biohacking with Brittany. I am so thrilled that you are listening to this episode this week. I am in the middle of my big giveaway right now for my birthday. So this is over the span of 2 days. Each day has a ton of different products involved from the health and wellness and biohacking space. If you would like to enter, I really suggest you do so. This is a fantastic way to try a bunch of products that maybe you've heard of that you haven't bought yet. and also learn about new companies that are emerging in this space. And so today we are definitely going to talk all about biohacking with the Neurohacker Collective I have here. They have a few different products that they are giving for this giveaway, and we're going to kind of go through all three of them, which I'm really excited about. But this is a very innovative company. So their mission is to revolutionize peak performance and cognitive enhancement, which is very biohacky, even that wording. And they have very cutting edge products. I feel like a lot of people know this brand actually already. So Dr. Nick Bitz is joining me. Dr. Nick, welcome to Biohacking with Brittany.
Hi, Brittany. It's really good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. So can you give us an overview of Neurohacker Collective and its unique approach to well-being?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, the company's been around since 2015. We are really well known in the biohacking space, hence the name. And ultimately, we're a pretty diverse group of individuals. We are physicians, scientists, researchers, academics, creatives. All of us are very passionate about health and wellness and, of course, biohacking. And in a nutshell, we build dietary supplements that are really designed to, number one, elevate the human mind, and number two, optimize human performance overall. So we do have a wide assortment of products. We're perhaps best known for our flagship product called Qualia Mind, which is a premium nootropic product that supports the brain health and cognitive performance. But all of our products kind of fall under the brand name Qualia. So we have Qualia Life, Qualia Symbiotic, Qualia Mind, Qualia Senolytic. And Qualia, we're actually looking at repositioning the company overall from Neurohacker Collective into Qualia as a brand, as a company name as well. We love the idea of Qualia. And so just in short, if you or any of your listeners are not familiar with Qualia as a term, it comes from the philosophy of mind, and it refers to really the subjective experience of being you, how you relate to the world around you through your five senses. And everybody has their own qualia. It's their inner subjective experience on a day-to-day basis. And that certainly has a huge impact on quality of life. And so we love to build products that target qualia and that are experiential or that are tangibly felt and that help raise that state of qualia, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I also love the idea of like rebranding fully to Qualia. I think that's a great idea. I also like Neurohacker. It's funky and it describes exactly what you guys are doing. You're really like hacking the way that you think and the way that your brain functions. But I find it interesting that your focus as a company is on supporting the body's self-regulation rather than using chemicals to alter biomarkers. And that's really interesting because I don't see a lot of that on the market. A lot of things are very almost like a quick fix with like a single ingredient type of supplement type of idea. But you kind of look at it differently. So how did that approach, like, how did you even come up with that? Like, what was the development behind that idea?
Yeah, I think the origin story is really geared around complex system science. And so the first few products that we developed, namely Qualia Mind, Qualia Life, were designed in a very different way than a lot of dietary supplements. If we're looking at a mind product as an example, a lot of companies will say, oh, let's just push one neurotransmitter in the body, such as, let's say, GABA. And so that would then be a single pathway formula pushing one pathway in a very strong way. It can create strong effects, but from a complex systems science standpoint, it's really missing the boat. It's very singular in its approach. It can lead to side effects if you push a pathway too heavy. And so our philosophy really was to take a step back and really study everything around the brain, the physiology of the brain, the anatomy of the brain, the different chemicals of the brain, and to really come at it from a very whole, comprehensive approach. And so, of course, we're pushing singular pathways, such as GABA, but we're doing that in the context of all of these systems that are going on. And so we find that this complex system science approach to formulation helps bring about the greatest effects overall. So in general, our formulas tend to be very robust. There tend to be a lot of ingredients, often will be a lot of pills. And so we're covering a broad range of pathways in the body. But part of that is that we're not recommending that people use these products every single day. Most of these products are meant to be used on average about 5 days per week, taking 2 days off, just so that the body doesn't become accustomed to the nutrition. You don't get a tolerance to some of the pathways that you're pushing and such. It's important to step back, really work with the body's innate intelligence, and just make sure that we're supporting the body and not overriding normal physiology.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. So I'm looking at your quality of mind right now. And first of all, you have a ton of ingredients in here. Like this is a very, very holistic approach that you've taken to supporting brain function. And I think that's why it became so popular so quickly, was because of everything that you just said. And it wasn't just like a few things that might help, maybe memory or something, like one specific thing. It was like, no, let's look at, like, what does it say? Like focus, memory, and drive all in one. And that's really impressive. But like you said, like on this bottle, it says take 5 days on and 2 days off. And that's so interesting because, again, I don't see that with supplements. All of the time, it's always like, take it consecutively for 90 days and then you'll feel a difference. It's such a different way of thinking about it. Do you find that people follow your instructions, or do you find that people love how it makes them feel, that they kind of just do it every day?
I find that for the most part, we tend to work with very well-educated health enthusiasts that are very knowledgeable about their bodies, very knowledgeable about supplements and food. So generally, I would say that our core audience member tends to follow our recommendations. With that said, we do really recommend and suggest that everybody personalize their own intake of dietary supplements. So even if we're recommending 7 pills per day as the therapeutic dose, sometimes people need less. I, for instance, generally take about 3 per day, 3 or 4 per day. So that tends to work very well for me. 7 is almost too much. It's a very felt formula. And so I've moderated my dose to 3 per day during the work week, Monday through Friday, and it brings about great results for me. And so I think personalization is a key element of any dietary supplement.
Yeah, I love that. I will say my husband, who has a very intense job, he works in e-commerce and he has like 14 meetings a day type of vibe. And he loves your nootropic, like this brand. And it's actually his favorite. So whenever I get it, he always takes it without talking to me about it. And he loves the way that it makes him feel. And it really does help him show up better for his job. And I've tried many nootropics, like, to be honest, like many, many different ones. And I can't say that for all of them. Definitely not. So I'm curious, aside from how you might feel short term, like, okay, maybe you can focus more and there's less procrastination and you're getting through your day better. Like, aside from those things that you feel during the day, are there long-term impacts of taking these ingredients, 5 days on, 2 days off? Maybe you do that for 6 months or something like that. Like, what are the long-term impacts?
Yeah, I do think that they have this dual action effect where you get this pretty immediate, quick acting effect, but then you get the more slow tonifying effects over the course of weeks or months. And they're very different. When you take caffeine, you feel it right away, but that doesn't have this lingering tonifying effect over the course of months, right? So yeah, what we notice is that people notice that this product works almost immediately. Does shift the brain into an alpha brainwave state, which is that relaxed yet alert state. But over the course of weeks, it starts to shift some of your hormone production, specifically through the HPA axis. And it can really help to shape and remodel the chemicals in the brain. And so it really shifts your physiology overall. And so our intent is not to get somebody, quote unquote, hooked on the product where they're using it for months, for years at a time. It's really to help that individual reach homeostasis and a good state of balance so that they don't require supplementation moving forward.
Right. Yeah, I actually love that. That's interesting that it plays a role in the HPA axis and how it can help with that. whether maybe that's like burnout or adrenal fatigue or even chronic fatigue as well, that a lot of people feel now as well. So aside from that, is there for like older populations or more aging populations, can this help with like kind of cognitive decline that ends up happening later on in life, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, absolutely. And for so many different reasons. I mean, one of the primary reasons would be the stack of B vitamins that are in there. B vitamin deficiency in older populations it's a problem. And of course, that's intimately linked to cognitive decline with advancing age. And so I think just getting a good B complex on a daily basis for an older population is critically important. Of course, building and rebuilding the phosphobilipid layer around cells is critically important too. And this product has DHA, an algae-based DHA that helps create that phospholipid bilayer so that the structure of cells, specifically in the brain, are healthy moving forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's interesting about the B vitamins, actually. I've never heard that. I wonder why that is. I just wonder if the diet changes that much that you're not getting enough, or like, I wonder why that declines.
I think it's probably manifold. In part, it's the lack of nutrients that people are ingesting. I think that modern farming techniques have just really got rid of a lot of the vitamins and minerals that were naturally abundant in a lot of the plants. In part, too, it's the gut bacteria. You know, we know that as people age, their microflora shifts drastically. It moves from a very diverse state into a very singular state. And so people aren't producing the B vitamins in the way that they did when they were younger, in part because the gut bacteria is not able to transform the food into B vitamins, specifically vitamin B12.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that makes a lot of sense. Do you think something like this mind product could help with Alzheimer's? Or is that something like you might legally not be able to say?
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't touch that area at all. I mean, we can talk about healthy neuron states, right? And there's a lot of implications in that. So it's a tough area to talk about when you're in the dietary supplement space.
I know. And honestly, it's not just that area. It's like so many things you have to word around it, right? Like it helps with performance and you can't necessarily say like, this is going to help you run longer or right. Like it's just so sticky. And it's unfortunate that it's like that because there's a lot of use cases where people have proven otherwise, you know?
Yeah, dietary supplements are handcuffed in a lot of ways. We can't speak to all of their benefits and virtues. And even if we do, we have to frame it in a specific way. We have to use certain words. We can't use other words. You know, we can't step into the world of OTC drugs or big pharma. So there's a very strong line. We can't treat diseases. And I will say one of the aspects that I really love about Neurohacker is that we're running studies on all of our products. And so from those studies, we're able to make really strong claims on our products, not necessarily a singular ingredient, but the whole product in terms of how it works in a broad population. Right now, we're running 1,000-person study on quality of mind to look at various aspects of brain health and cognitive performance overall. So I think that's going to allow us to tell a much larger story about this product here in the coming months.
Oh, that's interesting. And how are you measuring the efficiency of the product for that?
So this is designed using validated questionnaires. So really looking at before baseline measures and then measuring it at various points during the course of the regimen. So pretty simple. In the future, we're going to look at alpha brainwave measurements to really look at how quick they set in and how much it actually will push on that front. So getting into the brain is a hard thing to do. Of course, there are ways to measure some of the chemicals and whatnot, but we think that stepping back and measuring these broader outcomes, how are people feeling, what's their quality of life, what's their mood, what's their energy, those types of things are actually the most meaningful overall.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea that you're doing that. And I think it's also a good idea that you are potentially looking at brainwaves, because I wonder if, and this is kind of applicable to all scientific studies, we'll say, is like when you survey a population before and after, I just wonder how accurate it is versus them just being like, yeah, I feel better. Okay, 10 out of 10. And then not saying that that would happen, but I was just talking about this the other day on my podcast with skincare companies that have all of these claims based off of users using the product for 3 weeks and being like, yeah, my skin feels more hydrated. Okay, so that means it hydrates the skin. But it's like, does it actually do anything on a molecular level? So I think it's good that you're kind of approaching it from two different perspectives to see how it actually works in the brain.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. When you look in the skincare industry, it's amazing what they can say. It's just they have a different set of rules, and it's like every product's a panacea, and it's perfect for everybody. And it's a really funny area for me. I don't know why that's not more regulated. I'm an advocate of cosmetic skincare, especially when it's clean label and such, but it's amazing what they can say.
I know. It's really frustrating, but then on the other hand, like when you look at supplements and how, like you said, how handcuffed they are, that's also frustrating because now you really can't say a lot. And in your, I guess like maybe in your personal opinion, why do you think the supplement industry, especially here in North America, is so regulated and handcuffed versus other places in the world?
I don't know. I think it has its roots potentially in our medical system. I think that has override a lot of the innate wisdom, the natural wisdom that we've accumulated over time. And it certainly has turned into a business that's aligned itself with big farm. And so because it's such a large entity with such power in the US, they certainly have tried to put up guardrails and to own their own slice of the pie, or all of the pie as it is. And so we get a little chunk of that, which is great. There was, even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, the whole industry was at risk of collapsing because they were deemed close to becoming illegal. And so there was a lot of negativity swirling around dietary supplements at that moment. But I think that we've seen a pretty massive shift here in terms of people demanding these natural products just so they can be proactive in their healthcare. And as a holistic physician, I use these natural products in a clinical setting with great results. I don't need pharmaceutical drugs. I don't need high force interventions. You can start at the lower rungs of the ladder, working with diet, lifestyle changes, exercise, botanicals, nutrition, all of those things to really create massive change in an individual. So I think in the last, again, 10 to 15 years, we've seen this massive shift for the better. And now I think the industry is here to stay, which is good news.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And I think that's one of the best parts about being in the biohacking world is that there's this understanding of there's always an alternative way to do things, and you don't necessarily have to rely on pharmaceuticals. Obviously, they have their time and place, right? Like, and I, by all means, believe that. But it's really nice to be in this part of the wellness industry that is like such advocates for nootropics and like science-based supplements and different things like that. I want to talk about your Senolytic supplement, which I find very interesting. Again, this is another one of your products that you take intermittently. I think so it's 2 consecutive days, and I think you take it once a month for 2 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So this area of aging science is just absolutely fascinating. We developed this product about 12 months ago. We've had a really hard time keeping it in stock, much to all of our surprise, because it is so unique and it's really leading edge at this point. It's really all geared around cellular senescence, and cellular senescence it's one of the drivers of the aging process. There's a lot of research right now emerging in this area showcasing how these senescent cells accelerate the aging process. And the area of Senolytics are designed to help the body eliminate these old, worn out senescent cells. And so there's a lot of energy from nutraceutical companies, of course, pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies. Everybody's looking at Senolytics and trying to figure out how do we get into this space in a meaningful way to actually undercut what's driving the aging process. And so Neurohacker came at it. We looked at the research. We really pulled together 9 of the best senolytic agents according to the research. And then we combine them together into this 2-day regimen. And so most of the science on senolytic compounds shows that this kind of hit and run dose or intermittent dosing, where you hit the body hard for 2 days and then you let it rest, that looks to be the most favorable way to get rid of these senescent cells in the body. So it's much more effective than doing everyday continuous dosing of these ingredients as senolytic agents. And so, yeah, really this product's probably something akin to a short-term detox, where it's not a big ask. Most people can just add it right on top of their current regimens. You can do it one time per month, or you can do it seasonally, or you can do it every spring as a kind of cellular detox regimen.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I think I've done 2 months. I think I have one package left that I want to do. And I find it very interesting. Again, like just your approach with it. Does this have a impact on your skin at all? And I asked that because I just did a podcast episode with a company called OneSkin, and they have I think it's a peptide that's in their line, skincare line, that essentially targets senescent cells on the skin and in the skin layers for this very same, I guess, type of aging, situation that happens as we get older. So does this help with skin? Like, could you see a difference, or what do you think about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're just starting to get some science right now to actually prove this, but we know that senescence occurs in every tissue throughout the body. And I would say that the skin is probably one of 3 cell types that are most prone to becoming senescent over time. And so these old worn out cells that aren't functioning get lodged in the skin. It really can shift the structure of the skin as well as the function of the skin. And so I think in time we're gonna look at this a little bit more closer. We're going to be able to look at the impact of these senolytic regimens on senescent skin content before and after, and show that yes, in fact, it's promoting more youthful skin cells directly in the skin, which obviously has implications for fine lines and wrinkles, elasticity, hydration, really the things that we value in terms of skin health overall.
Right. So when you're doing this 2-day, let's say, cleanse for the sake of it, what difference would people notice, if anything? And these differences that you might notice in your skin, like how quickly would you notice that? How many times do you have to do it? Like, what are your recommendations?
Yeah. So obviously the older you are, the more senescent cells you've accumulated over your life. So I would say anybody over the age of 40 would benefit from doing a senolytic regimen, no doubt. And we know that the senescent cells don't accumulate in a reliable pattern or reliable way. So it's different for every person where you accumulate those cells. And so the older you are, and really the amount you've accumulated over time in certain tissues will dictate the overall response. So we do find skin is an area where people will notice some differences. Often joint health is also an area you notice differences. And then brain health, of course, is another area. Neurons never turn over during the course of a life. You have one set of neurons, and so neurons don't become senescent. They're the one type of cell in the body that don't. But there are supporting cells around neurons that do become senescent. And so if they become, again, old, worn out, non-functioning, but they stick around in the brain, you're not getting full function from the brain itself. And so there's a way to, quote unquote, regenerate these cells to make sure that you're creating youthful cells to support the neurons of the brain overall.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So essentially, we accumulate these senescent cells as we get older, and then you can take something like this senolytic cleanse, which kind of gets rid of them or reduces the amount in the body. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And so are there certain populations, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but are there certain populations around the world that potentially have more of these senescent cells than other places? Like somebody living in a city versus living out in the woods? Like, I'm just wondering, how do we reduce maybe how many we accumulate? What can we actually do?
Yeah, the science is still early days, so I don't think we have all of the info at this point. But I would say there's no doubt. I mean, a healthy cell can get converted into a senescent cell through stress. And it can be any kind of stress, whether it's biological or environmental. So I certainly think that individuals living in cities would probably have a greater senescent cell load than somebody who's living on a farm, as it were, far away from the big cities. And we do know that senescent cells are directly correlated with lifespan. And people that live in blue zones obviously live much longer. So I would assume that these people probably have less of a senescent cell burden versus people who live in non-blue zones.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the blue zone research is always really interesting. And I'm curious to see what comes out more about this in relation to the blue zones, or maybe just like different populations around the world in general. I want to shift gears and talk about your Symbiotic product, which is the one that I actually haven't tried out of these three. And so this is kind of like an all-in-one gut support solution. Can you kind of explain why you designed the product in this way?
Yeah. So this is a new product for us. We are very excited about it so far. Yeah, in building this product, we didn't, again, want to take a singular approach to solving gut health. We researched over 140 ingredients. We rated all of them based upon the science that's available. And then we chose from that list the highest ranking ingredients, and then we combined them together to create this product. So it truly is an all-in-one solution. You know, it blends together the prebiotics, the probiotics. We've included postbiotics, which is a whole nother podcast in and of itself. And then a nice blend of fermented foods, digestive enzymes, and more. And so it's geared around helping the body to recondition the gut environment and to help strengthen the gut-brain axis. Because, of course, as neurohackers, we're always worried about brain health.
Yeah, I love that you focus on that because not a lot of gut products do, to be honest. And I've had gut health issues since I was a teenager. So I have kind of gone through the ringer with trying all sorts of things. And very rarely do I see anybody talk about the gut-brain axis and that connection. Can you explain, I guess, maybe what you've typically seen or heard of like when somebody might have a poor functioning gut, like how does that show up in their brain health and maybe mentally for them?
Yeah, I think that, so there's a term called autointoxication. It's a very old term. And there was this idea by some of the eclectic physicians that essentially the gut creates a lot of toxins and a lot of toxicity. And these toxins make their way into the body systemically. And that can impact everything from skin to brain health. And so some of these early eclectic physicians were really focused on eradicating that autointoxication and looking at the gut environment to improve these other gut organ relationships. And so I look upon it as the body is like a vessel and it's constantly being inundated with these toxins and it's filling up with these toxins. And eventually, if there's too many toxins, it starts to overflow. And so I will say that we see this generally as an expression on the skin first and foremost. So anybody that has too much toxicity, especially in their GI tract, you can see this visibly on the skin. So that could be a skin rash or acne or redness. And that is just the body trying to get rid of these toxins. And the same thing is up in the brain. I mean, you're getting these metabolites in the gut that are getting released systemically, and they do enter the brain and they impact how the brain functions overall. We know in healthy models that a healthy gut produces, they're called biogenic amines. They are the dopamine, the epinephrine, the serotonin, these neurotransmitter chemicals that are really essential to our mood and our overall brain function.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting. I think, like you said, it's interesting that you said it shows up in the skin first. I've definitely experienced that. And the skin is always a good indicator of what's going on internally, whether it's a rash or eczema or, like you said, like dryness or redness or acne or like wrinkles or whatever is going on. Like it always kind of shows what's happening inside that you can't see. So your skin is such a good indicator for everyone to understand their health in a better way. And I also love that you just talked about how this really can promote brain performance and mood. And everything is very connected, right? And I guess that's why I love your product so much, is because you don't look at things as like a one-off. It's like, okay, how do we support the brain? But what does that mean for the other organs in the body or the other hormones that are also associated with that?
Yeah, and it brings up the idea of psychobiotics. And so when you get into the area of gut health, it opens the door to really cool topics. And again, one of them is the gut-brain axis. The other one that I think is really interesting is that psychobiotic aspect. And in our formula, we did use a specific probiotic strain called Bacillus coagulans that has been studied at low doses to improve mood. And that's profound. And so just using a bacteria can shift your mood. It can shift your brain state. And we have really well-designed human clinicals to show that. And so from my aspect, it's just really fascinating when you start getting into these gut organ relationships. And I think, again, the science is pretty new, but it's starting to emerge. And the gut-brain axis looks to be the most promising at this stage. There's a lot of interest in this area right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So if someone's listening to this and maybe they have some of the symptoms that we've talked about, whether it's a skin flare-up or fatigue, what product do you think they should start with that really is going to move the needle for them? Like maybe they don't get all three of these. Like where can someone start who's a bit new to this?
That's a great question. I think Symbiotic is probably the most foundational product that we have, because it's designed as an everyday product, which is unique for us. But we really are focusing on gut health as a core foundational element for everything in the body. All the eclectic physicians, the TCM doctors, Ayurvedic physicians, they look at the gut as the core element, as either the root of health or the root of disease. And so I would say that is probably the most foundational product that we have. I will say that I love taking Senolytic, which is the anti-aging product, every month. And I've taken, I think, maybe 6 rounds at this point. But I think that's a really nice add on top of any regimen that's already in place. Again, it's not a big ask. It's 2 days per month. There's no die-off reaction that occurs. So there's really no side effects or adverse effects. You just get these lingering, profound effects over the course of weeks. And so I think that those two products are very different, but they're very complementary overall and very easy to combine.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a great idea. I think starting with the gut is so pivotal. It's so foundational to our health. Obviously, your mind is like your quality of mind product is fantastic. But if your gut health isn't in a good place, just taking a powerful nootropic blend like that might not do as much as if you were to first support the gut and then maybe add that in the future.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. So you can't be well without a healthy gut.
Exactly. So if people want to connect with you and try some of your products, where can they do that?
Yeah, the best place is going to neurohacker.com, which of course is our website. All the products are there. Our website is just loaded with fantastic content. We write huge articles on all of our products explaining why we formulated them in the way that we formulated them. You can find monographs on virtually every ingredient that we include in our products. And from there, you can find our podcast. It's called Collective Insights, where we explore a lot of various topics outside of dietary supplements, outside of brain health. And so we like to really just stay on the leading edge of health and wellness as a whole.
Yeah, I love that you do that. Your website's great. It has a lot of science on it. It has a lot of information and graphics and really helps explain your concepts in a very easy and digestible manner. So I will link that in the show notes for everybody and put it on my website so they can find it. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was great. And I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you, Brittany. It was fun.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Biohacking with Brittany. If you're interested in finding the show notes or the sponsors for this episode, you can do so on my website, which is biohackingbrittany.com. Remember to follow me on Instagram, where I'm most active. My handle is @biohackingbrittany. And if you're interested in working together and you want to email me directly, you can do that. My email is info@biohackingbrittany.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you tune in next week.